Welcome and thanks for tuning in to the Always Building podcast, hosted by Bobby Vickers and Matt Houchin. Episode 2 features Tyler Brabec of Brabec Custom Homes. Please enjoy. So let's just pick up where you were talking about big subs versus small subs. As a custom home builder, when you're thinking about trades, how do you evaluate them?
For us, it's a couple different things. Can they pay their bills? That's probably number one, right?
But how do you know that?
It's asking other builders usually. I think that's probably a misconception. We talk to each other.
Yeah.
All of us do.
Okay.
Most of us do. I pick up and call my competitors. They call me. We talk about different subs. I think once you get to a certain price point, there's also a certain level of guys that can do the job. And so it's a lot of, it's just like my homeowners calling and ask their friends how the build went and everything else. So we're vetting through who's actually using the sub. Are the sub crews getting paid? Usually it's one job in. We can kind of figure that out quickly. And you can tell, right? Usually it's what they're showing up to the job in. Is they have the right equipment? And I can tell that by walking another job. So the verification process is usually like, hey, give me builder references. I give them a call every time, make sure how it goes. I can tell really quickly if that's a good fit or not based on their experience. Mm-hmm. And it also depends on who I'm calling, because there's people that we respect the work they do. There's people we know probably don't do a great job. Just easily tell by the job site. So like that's level one. Usually level two is like physically inspecting the work on the job site. Again, pretty easy to tell if the right things are being done on the job site. If it's a mess, that's another big thing that we look for. Mm-hmm. Cleanliness after the job's done. We don't expect you to be clean during the job, but after you're done for the day, it needs to be swept and cleaned and moved on. So those are things we didn't have we didn't have the ability to demand that 2 years ago, because I would have been out there doing it myself probably, just from lack of, people. 2 years ago we had to beg people to show up to the job site.
You're talking about COVID, right?
Yeah. So it was like even like COVID, but then like just the boom we had in like Fort Worth, really DFW in general. It's like if you wanted guys to show up to the job site, you paired up with their rules. I think in 2024, our motto in the office is just winning the job site back. If you want to work for us, then you're playing by our rules. If you don't want to do that, that's great. We'll find someone else that does. That's been a big swing for us this year. You want to clean the job site? That's fine. We'll find someone else that wants to. So those are the big changes there was a certain point 2 years ago when I was literally just power dialing who I could get to show up to a job site. And at a certain point paying whatever I needed to pay for the job to get it done so that my client could get the house done. So those are like that for us it was me calling big subcontractors that had the bandwidth to take us on. Quality probably wasn't there. We had to manage that, more work on our end to use a big subcontractor because there's usually not a ton of supervision. The internal office, I might have to talk to like 4 or 5 different people, from a bidding department to who's actually procuring the material, who's actually going to supervise the install, who's scheduling the trade.
Yeah, and can they actually provide the material that they're saying they can?
Yeah. And when is it going to happen? Mm-hmm. That was a big deal a couple of years ago. What's the lead time? And so it was just that's kind of what we had to do to get the job done. Quality's never there usually at that price, like using a big volume subcontractor.
Which trades require the most supervision?
They all require, I say that, back to the example, like a garage door doesn't require a ton of supervision on our end. There's some trades where it's very mission critical that we're there managing it in real time when the work's occurring. That's concrete, back into framing, plumbing in the ground, making sure that that's sloped properly in the ground and done per code and everything else before it gets covered up and you can't see it again. Other than that, it's pretty easy to rip wire out. It's pretty easy to move duct. It's pretty easy to change that stuff if there's an issue. There's really nothing that can't be fixed. Even framing, there's nothing that can't be fixed at that point. Concrete, plumbing in the ground, anything else that requires chipping, concrete, or tunneling underneath the slab, those are mission critical. The thing with those guys is there's not big concrete companies usually that work in residential. They don't like doing the work. They don't like dealing with me. They don't like dealing with our guys. We're way more picky than a Fortune 500 company that is pouring 400 slabs in DFW that get zero supervision. They're not checking the plans. They might from the truck, but they're not out there measuring exact, hey, you need to move your plumbing stack 2 inches. They're not doing that. So or hey, you need to move your cable over out or chair this or whatever it is. Small little things, they're not doing that stuff. So that's the tough part, is we're using really small subcontractors on a pretty high risk element of the project. And it's just having the right guys to manage it.
And hoping for the right communication from them.
Yeah. And if not, it's pretty easy to, the day of the pour is like the last day, right?
Yeah.
So you need to know that they can execute on that. But beyond that, if we need to wait a week for them to show back up or whatever it is, we'll wait. So we're never rushing anything. And that's kind of the thing with us. It's, it might be 12 months to build your home, it might be 18 months, it might be 24 months, but it might be longer than that if it needs to be, just to get, the right product at the end of the day.
Sure. What you talked about during COVID, how it was, you were pulling at straws, trying to get anyone that you could to come out. What type of growth has the company gone through from that point to now? If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. So
numbers.
I think for us, a revenue basis, I started, my background started at a Fortune 500 company doing project management, then went to a multifamily company, did project management, started working on the side, doing what I thought was going to be my personal house, sold that one, had a full-time job, started the next one, sold that one, and it kind of started to snowball. So I think from 2020, that first year revenue was like $1.5 million. 2021 was somewhere around $6 million. 22 was 8. 23 we just did 10, and this year will be somewhere around 12. So we've had steady growth from a revenue perspective, but it took off right when COVID started.
Mm-hmm.
So and then 2025 we're projecting somewhere around 16 probably.
Okay.
Which is stuff that we already have on the books for next year. So growth through COVID, getting the right people, trying to save money when I probably shouldn't have been trying to save money, with getting the right people in the office, thinking that we could do it lean and mean we still are lean and mean, but not like we were.
Yeah, but starting and rolling through COVID has got to make it seem almost like everything's going to be easier. From this point out. You could even probably justify your schedule better.
I think in 2020, not only were we getting subs that couldn't show up when they said they were, materials that didn't show up when they said they were, and really 21 too, materials that were coming manufactured, the manufacturing process, I think internally, the quality control involved with everything, windows, appliances, you name it. So not only were we not getting people showing up, we were getting products that were not good. And then dealing with the warranty of products that.
And how long did it take to replace a broken IG from an Anderson window in the middle of COVID, right?
Look,
8 months?
I won't put anything. Anderson is not the people we had problems with. It was other people we had problems with. And it was, we knew from Anderson, and who we did heavy in COVID was good with us. So the quality was still there with Anderson. It's the lesser windows.
Right.
That growth where we were at, like what used to be $1 million house, and the comp support a vinyl window, which is not a Brabec Custom Homes. You come in the door and ask, we don't do vinyl windows. You can find someone else to hit that price point for us. We're not going to do it for 100 reasons. Energy is the main one, but the waterproofing, the way that the windows are put together, it's just a bad recipe. And so Anderson helped us through COVID pretty good, like great company to deal with. We use a ton of other companies now too.
Right.
But really it was like vinyl windows were a massive issue. Leaking, not anything to do with flashing. We do a ton of back end quality control on our end, videoing how flashing's done, making sure that zip tape's rolled properly. We even do different head flashing. If it's a brick house, we're adding another layer of waterproofing on top of it, just that lintel to the wall. So the windows weren't leaking because of us. Now our homeowner may have thought it was, but they were all manufacturing defects with the glazing, the way the windows were molded together, something that I can't control, right? So we kept dealing with a ton of issues that we just spin our wheels on stuff that we couldn't control. Appliances are a big one. I don't care what brand it is, they're going to break. It's a matter of like when at this point. Every house, it's a microwave. Microwaves are like number one usually. The burners on there, the fridges have problems. It's always something. Ice makers breaking. So
we closed on our house in 21, and I think we got our microwave in 22.
Yeah. And so we had a little bit of that. I think on the front end of a lot of our projects, we knew it was going to be like that, and we were ahead of appliances. Like, you want to sign a contract? Let's go ahead and order appliances. Right. So we didn't.
Don't change your mind.
Yeah. Well, and they didn't have the opportunity. Like you could wait for 12 months or 18, whatever it was. For appliance. So
that was wild.
That was that COVID helped into the deal where we try to get everything done at the beginning and procure everything as fast as humanly possible. It was really just dealing with poor products. Some of that was just price point related, and some of that was just manufacturing related. So we still deal with some issues from poor products that, unbeknownst to us, like we're dealing with them.
Right.
Mainly windows and doors.
How did you get into the production business to start with? So did you go to school for engineering or architecture?
So I graduated at the University of Texas with a civil engineering degree. Okay. My focus was in structural. Interned for a really good structural engineering company my junior year in LA. Graduated, thought I wanted to do like the biggest and best structural design, and I did. So we did like high rise, tilt wall, was involved in the Star Cowboys stuff, helped build the Eddie's headquarters down in Austin, helped with a ton of high rise design for a year, worked 7 days a week, worked 12 to 15 hours a day, it felt like, for a little bit of money. Realized that probably wasn't worth it. Did engineering, went to Toll Brothers, worked there for, did structural engineering there. That was a very good, respectful of your personal time. So we worked for barely 40 hours a week, probably. But like, it's that corporate, like they took very good care of their employees. I have nothing bad to say about them. But, at that point, I just I was doing probably, 4 or 5 frame inspections a week on the stuff that we were doing design locally. Going and looking out, going, hey, I'm making the punch list for these guys. I'm telling them how to fix it. I'm telling them what to do. Made a lot more money than me, and they were doing the fun stuff. They got to put the puzzle together. I was like creating the plans to the front end, but I wasn't executing it, and just realized, hey, maybe there's a missing piece here, and that I felt like I could excel at. So convinced the guys in operations to let me come do assistant project manager program, which is a big deal at Toll Brothers. It's just like a year of training. So you each get trained marketing, sales, construction, even just managing interpersonal conversation. Like they train you on everything top to bottom. That program's usually like an MBA, a master's degree, or usually like an engineering degree of some sort. And then they want to just teach you the way they want it done. And I think the biggest things I picked up there was like they created this marketing machine. We were no different than any of the other builders. But they
at that level, how can you be?
You're not. Yeah, it's the same stuff. It's just the way that they marketed themselves, the way the sales offices were ran, the way they trained their people. I was surrounded by phenomenal people at Toll Brothers, the best of the best in the Fortune 500 production home building realm. And I still believe that. Still, he had a really good group of guys at the time. From there, went to multifamily, bigger construction, thought that's probably the path I wanted to go, back to like building skyscraper type stuff.
So you left, so Toll Brothers doesn't do multifamily. You went to another
They do
firm?
multifamily. Okay. I did a different multifamily firm.
Got it.
That was new at the time for us, but I went to a phenomenal privately owned company in DFW, phenomenal guys. We started doing really big stuff. It was a $50 million project in downtown Dallas. That was pretty much just the only project we were working on at the time. I think like right around that 2020 mark is when I started doing personal house, started to sell that, and then it would just kind of naturally progress into quitting my job. But picked up a ton of stuff in between there.
Right.
And just kind of found that the residential, like for multifamily, I have to get a company to come check the window flashing. I got a company that's coming to check the temperature of the concrete. They're doing cylinder breaks. I got to ask if I can stress the cables in the concrete. We're checking every box, and there's a fail safe for every box. Everything's getting inspected, and everyone knows for the most part, knows what they're doing. We have a phenomenal set of plans, might be 500 pages. Everything's there. Specs are there. Now, if they're good, all of that stuff. Like the drawings weren't great, but they were there. But the big difference in multifamily is on-site supervision constantly. And if there isn't, there better be. Like they make the changes quickly, but you can demand schedule and push it.
Do you think that's because a lot of the money behind multifamily is pooled money versus just an individual homeowner? They can only look at so much, but when you have investors, there's somebody out there kind of watchdogging the funds?
I don't think so to a certain extent. I think it's in order to execute a project and meet the schedule demands of the general contractor, you have to have site supervision, and you have to be able to have better processes inside your office and able to be like a residential subcontractor. 90% of the time can't go do a multifamily job, couldn't do a commercial job, they don't have the scheduling ability, they don't have the personnel, they don't have the right people to manage the project.
Got it.
And then within that stuff, like we're paying people every 30 days. So it's net 30 usually, and sometimes even longer if you're drawing for stuff that's not complete. And so like the approval process of getting paid there in residential, if I got a guy that does drywall patch for me and needs a check on Friday, I'll go write the check because he's good at what he does.
Right.
And I need to get him to come back next week probably.
Yeah.
And multifamily, a guy comes to ask for money. It's like red flag. Let's go check his vendors, make sure they're getting paid, and joint check him if we need to. Or let's keep an eye on it type deal and see what's going on. Sometimes we would help, but most of the time it was like they knew the process when they got into it.
Yeah, not to mention that just small mistakes and on multifamily has just the huge physical and time cost.
Yeah, and that's basically the thing. We're trying to push a schedule.
Yeah,
we have tenants to move in. We had we got to get the building leased out as fast as humanly possible, and really it's using guys that we know can move on a schedule. Residential, if I put us, we used to meet weekly in multifamily, give out that schedule for the next 6 weeks, and really like a really hard 2 week look ahead. And those guys better have been there. It doesn't matter like, oh, what's your schedule look like on other jobs? It was no, like you're gonna be there at this day, and you're gonna get these things done. And they would tell, hey, we probably can't get this many units done in that amount of time, but we could do this. And so it was always collaboration, but it was generally, you need to show up at the job site here. And if you're not here, then we're going to hit you with delay. Now, we never had those conversations because we wanted to keep a good relationship with them. Not to say that those didn't happen when people were struggling, but it was mainly like, you show up this day with this stuff, you're going to get this done. And if they didn't, then we had contractual ways of pushing them to do it or finding someone else to do it. Residential, my painter might have 1 or 2 crews. And if I did that to him, he'd never work for me ever again. And like, then I'm losing a really skilled trade that, there's not a lot of skilled painters, right? So I can't push him away. And he also is trying to juggle he has 2 crews. So like if he's working for another home builder, I can't just tell him, hey, next Thursday, I need you to start a paint, because he might be wrapping up that job. So that's part of back to us, like setting expectations with our homeowners. It's, you don't want a random guy showing up to your job to paint. You want the guy that we know does a good job to show up and paint. And that might wait for him that might be us waiting for him to finish another job. And so we can't push those things. Same with our framer. If our framer can't get off another job because he's got a good crew that we like on another job, we're going to wait.
Yeah.
Same with every single trade, except for like mechanical, electrical, plumbing is usually, we don't like to use the small guy in case something bad happens and they can step in and warranty.
Get it fixed.
Exactly. So there's kind of this balancing, like my painter, I don't want to use a big company because I might have 12 crews that works for a big company and I might get a bad one on one job and I might get a really good on the next one. We can't, the quality, like just managing, making sure that the same consistent quality on the job for us, there's no way to do it with a company like that. We tried that, didn't work at all. So it's a tile guy. It's the painter. It's your trade. It's your skilled trade that you can't push. Multifamily, we didn't have like super skilled trade. Yeah. We weren't doing anything crazy. We weren't doing details that the interior designer had never designed before. We were within reason in the amenity area, but we had like 24 months to get shop drawings dialed in and finished with big companies that had the capabilities to get all the approvals in place and sign off on it, and they go, right? So
now, are you one of the builders that's like old school where it's like pen and paper and just a phone, or do y'all use some sort of technology to handle the communication and the scheduling kind of behind the scenes?
Yeah, so we're not old school pen and paper at all. We're the opposite. We use probably 4 main internal programs to either communicate with the subcontractor, contract, do estimating, actually order the materials, manage the financials, which is the biggest piece of probably choosing a custom home builder. And then, communicating with our homeowners with photos, with weekly updates, with stuff like that. We use a couple different things for that. That stuff changes for us all the time. Kind of residential, like kind of on that tier of like, where's the money at for these guys, big software companies? It's not usually residential. So we don't get the best of the best softwares. So it's kind of making what's available work for us. So we use a couple different things, and a couple of those people I don't even want to give credit to because we kind of make them work for us. They don't listen to us. We try to make them work. We use a great company called Adaptive for our financials now.
Okay.
Recent startup, really phenomenal guys. That's really changed the way that we've done our financials to be able to openly. I think the biggest thing that happened to us in the last 3 or 4 years was in 2021, we saw a big price run at the spring of 21. And in spring of 21, it was, we can't do fixed price contracts anymore.
Okay.
We have to do a cost plus contract. in order for me to be able to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
If not, I would have gone under probably.
Now, for anyone listening that doesn't know, what's the difference between those?
So fixed price is basically, if I say I'm going to build your house for $1.5 million, we establish a scope of work of what that includes. Okay. A lot of times there's some allowances included for like tile, appliances, those types of things. And so like that's a guaranteed maximum price to your project. Not to say that the contract doesn't have stipulations if we hit solid rock or acts of God related stuff that we can't get compensated for. That
wives and change orders.
Yeah, exactly. But we really pride ourselves. I don't like I ate a $28,000 retaining wall on a job that I probably shouldn't have. We encountered solid rock. They were like, hey, make sure there's no change orders on this job. We thought we did everything that we needed to do. We did, but we kind of got the short end of the stick on that one. And I ate it, and it is what it is. It's kind of cost of doing business. We never, not one time did on any of the fixed price projects did we hit homeowners with change orders for lumber, for any of the increases. We never once sent any material or labor related price increases. I just took it in the chin on those.
That was 2020, 2021.
Yeah. So those were times that we just felt like it was better for us growing and just our homeowners to just continue to do that. And a lot of times they didn't know it. It was just,
it's not like here's what the invoice should have been.
Yeah.
We're only going to charge you this. You just kind of slid it across the desk and went on about your business.
And a lot of that stuff was like, we were wrapping these houses up behind schedule that we couldn't control on budget. But I wasn't going to go in your face like, hey, I ate $20K in lumber or 40 or 50K in lumber.
Right.
I ate labor increases because I needed a guy to show up. And the only way to do it was like, I'll pay you an extra $1 a square foot.
Yep.
It was everything that I was eating. And it was trying to figure out how I could limit the losses at a certain point. So that was just tough. So it was like, and there was times when I was like, there was times in spring of 21 where I was quoting a job. One day later, it was going up 30K. Yep. The next day it was going up another 10. And it was at a certain point where I was like, I literally can't. And there were some very uncomfortable times where I even recall like, we were like about to sign the fixed price contract in January of 21. And it was like, I was losing sleep because I was going to pull the rug out from when I go, we have to do cost plus.
Yeah.
No one in 21 wanted to do a cost plus or percentage fee contract.
Okay. People want to set an expectation and know that that's going to
be. Yeah. Hey, I'm paying you to get my house built for 1.5.
Right.
It's like, this is what I want to have it include. And I don't want the liability of lumber running on
it. The horror stories of when that was going on, like got people that were a year into building their house and all of a sudden they can't finish it because their builders just shocked them with another
$150,000, they lost a job, right? What if you lose a job in the middle of that? You can't go get more money.
There was a lot of that. I mean, we had a lot of, for us, we had also the flip side of that was, we kind of hit a peak at a certain point in 21 of real estate here. And then when rates started to rise eventually, selling your existing home got tougher. So we had people that were building homes, anticipating getting a certain price for their home that they weren't getting, and then it wasn't selling. And then it was like, we put jobs on pause just that I had to continue to pay general liability that I didn't send change orders for. Right. I still had to man the job. So I had to make sure stuff wasn't getting stolen on my fixed price projects in order for them to hopefully sell their house and be able to close on it. Because I don't, for multiple reasons, we didn't want them to default on our contract. But that was, so many horror stories of trying to help and get through that. It's not even close to that today. But like, we had to make a pretty big shift in 21 to go from fixed price, which is pretty easy to go, I set $8 a square foot for framing. I know I'm paying him $8 a square foot for framing. I'm in budget, right? You don't have to pay a ton of attention to how you're doing project financial health wise. When you switch to cost plus, not only do you need to make sure what you're paying for stuff, you have to be able to present that to your homeowner, right? Mm-hmm. But really for us at a certain point, it was like cost plus just a straight percentage fee of what it was. So it was like, okay, so not only did my homeowner get penalized if I went over budget on lumber, because I made more money, they got double hit on both ends. So like, it was just not a great deal. But at the same time, it was like low rates. We know high rates are coming. Let's do it. We think prices are going to come down eventually. We just didn't know when. We always were like lumbers. It was summer of 21 that we started to see a reprieve in lumber prices and a couple other things. Most stuff never came back down. It was really lumber.
Windows never went back?
No.
Concrete?
No. Well, concrete's a different story. I think that's a long story on concrete, but
is there a cartel concrete? Is there a concrete cartel?
Okay. Yeah, there is. Okay. There's a monopoly of concrete.
Sure.
You can bookmark this podcast. There will be some looking into concrete companies here on price gouging and everything else. It's happening. And that's one thing that we continue to get price increases on stuff that make no sense. None at all. And it's like, hey, 20 days from now, we're going up $10 a yard. And it's like, it happens to us like randomly all the time. And then back in 21, it was Portland cement we couldn't get.
It was always
other
something,
aggregate.
right? Yeah.
And now it's just $15 a yard. And it's a big guy coming in town, buying a bunch of concrete companies,
right,
posting their rates.
Well, it's the United Rentals model, right? So the best way to become rich is to buy a bunch of fragmented industries, roll them up under one, offer slightly better service, but really raise the price because there's no competition now.
In this case, it's not any better service. It's solely increasing prices.
Sure.
And so that's one that's really hard for us to project to our clients. And we still get a little bit of that today. It's not like it was in 21 though. But really, back to the financial thing, we had to make a switch, and then figuring out how we were going to ask for money monthly and project what we thought that they would need to pay at the end. If there was, we started to carry a pretty hefty contingency in the middle of 21. Like, hey, you need to carry a 10% contingency on a residential project, which is ludicrous. Like 150K on a $1.5 million house. That's ridiculous. You'd think, but man, it was going quick. And then at a certain point, it turned into us, which was growing pains again. It was, okay, cost plus a percentage fee to shield our losses and really pass that on to the client, which we had to do or we wouldn't be in business.
Right.
And they had that contingency for a reason. It was for us to manage a project and use it how we needed to with lumber. But it was also communicating, hey, we didn't do great on lumber, and like having to share that with them. And it got to the point at a certain point where like they were equally as invested in our project buyout, which is contracting with the garage door company and contracting with everyone, trying to protect their costs, that it got unhealthy with how involved the clients were in our projects too. So there's so many different angles of how it went from, I think their cost plus happened before 2020. It definitely did. And guys did it different ways, but it was never like 2021 spring wondering if they were going to have to bring me a check at closing or not. For some people that just didn't have the money to bring a check at the end. So we had to do a really good job to make sure that we were making selectionary decisions that would keep us in budget, even though we were trying to project with stuff we couldn't control. So it's kind of this perfect storm. And then like in residential, in multifamily, use a program called Procore. I also had like 6 months to put the Procore budget together, make sure that it was really good. Had 3 accountants in the office to help us put it together. Everything was really good. We had the bank looking at it. We had everyone, everybody had so many checks there. Here, it's like I was running off QuickBooks Online in a spreadsheet, trying to throw
and an Airtable.
Yeah. Well, and then I'm writing guys checks, like I talked about, my small guys, trying to make sure that they can pay their bills right quickly. And I was running on, and I still today run on my own money in residential versus in multifamily commercial. The subs don't get paid until you get paid.
Okay.
It's a monthly payout usually. In residential, I got to pay these guys or they won't show up again. Back to my painter. If I don't pay him on Friday, even though I haven't drawn for the bank, which is my client, I don't have, I got to pay him, or he's not going to work for me again, or he won't be able to pay Sharon Williams or Benjamin Moore, whoever it is. So it kind of came down to like, we needed to find a process, or we needed to find a software, which we thought was Procore. We love Procore. It's just not great for residential for a couple of different reasons. Integrations with QuickBooks Online doesn't feed 2 different directions with, you can't go into Procore and change a QuickBooks expense. It doesn't communicate
both ways.
It only goes one way. Adaptive came into our life about a year ago. Was raw at the time, is way better now. But it communicates 2 ways. I can do cost projections in a budget, but it also uses AI to, if I send in an invoice, it rips off who it's from, what the invoice number is, all the fun stuff. And then like I can link subcontractor certificate of insurance, W-9, subcontract agreement. It automatically shoots us an email. Hey, it's expiring.
So it sounds like you're not the builder that's on the Facebook group trying to find a painter for a job tomorrow.
No, we're not doing that. If
that's
that happens, and if
see.
you see your builder doing that, you should start asking questions.
Well, and I think as a homeowner, it's something that that's not a bad practice, is to like find your local building groups, because there are builders that you would be surprised at who is trying to find a last minute sub for a job that week, which means that
was us in 2020 though, in 2021, because I didn't have a choice.
Sure.
Today, if you're doing that, you You're either not trying hard enough or I can't tell. My phone blows up with like 80 calls a day. Hey, who do I need to talk to about getting work? Who do we need to talk to? And most of the time, if someone's calling me looking for work, I'd say like maybe 1 out of 10 is worth taking the time, because even today in the luxury custom market, if you're looking for work and that's your niche that you work in as a subcontractor, you're probably not great at your job. Or you're new at it, and those guys are willing to work with and try to figure out, hey, is that a good fit for us?
You see a lot of people moving in, and it seems like the Facebook marketplace is where it's like, hey, I'm from Ohio, right? I do this thing here.
We don't do Facebook marketplace stuff, so that, I can't even remotely relate.
I get these notifications on my phone. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This builders.
Yeah, exactly. It's for us, like it really is such a niche subcontractor that works on our jobs that, like, not to say that we all use the same subcontractors, but we all use the same 10 subcontractors within reason. And we may I may use 2 different guys depending on the price on the next job. Like whoever's low, we know both of them can do the job, and that might be a good fit. We don't use the same guy on every job. We try to use the same painter. We try to use the same tile guy, because those guys are irreplaceable in an industry where like someone that's really good, it's at the job. The best way to say it, like, it's, you don't need on framing, you don't need the most tightest cuts, within reason. You don't need all that stuff. You can train a guy to use a saw pretty quickly and cut. And a lot of times you can have a guy lay out stuff and cut pretty quickly. With tile, it's like you need to be an artist and know how to put it together. And even to that, tile is waterproofing the walls that water hits every day that people tend to neglect. It's being able to put together the system to waterproof, make sure you don't have mold growing in the walls and everything else. So it's using the guys that we know can do the job the way that we want to do it, which is not the same way that another custom home builder in our market wants to do it. So there's a little bit of training. It's a lot of training the subcontractors to do the way that Brabec Custom Homes wants to do it, and not the way that they've been doing it for 30 years.
So let's take waterproofing a bathroom. You're not saying, hey, tile guy, here's my bathroom, I'll come back in 2 weeks. You're saying, here's the sheetrock that we need, here's the waterproofing system.
It's the Schluter system's waterproofing system, or if sometimes it's Red Guard, depending on the price point, it's liquid flashing the walls. It's making sure, to me, the shower is no different than waterproofing your exterior walls. Like, you don't want water to get behind the walls outside. You don't want them to get behind the walls inside. It's no different. So it's the tile guy that we've trained to do waterproofing a certain way that we watch, but it's also giving him diagrams. It's using the right software to lay it out how he needs to do it, making sure he has the right materials on the job, and then ultimately making sure the project manager that's managing the project is making sure all of those things are happening, right? So
whenever you left to start your own business, you were the project manager. You were everything, right? What has that transition been like from being the guy, the main point of contact, to now running a business? How has that changed?
The day-to-day changes from, I don't call subcontractors and schedule them. I'm not texting them at Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, reminding them they need to show up tomorrow morning. I'm not texting them Wednesday morning at 6 a.m., making sure they're showing up to the job site. The stuff that inherently in custom home builder, you're not checking a box and the guys are showing up like you would in production home builders. It's dummy proof that way. Very involved with subcontractors on a day-to-day. I don't do that anymore. It's making sure that my guys are doing that, but it's trusting them to do that. That transition took a little bit. It was getting the right people in the office to do it. Not to say we didn't have the right people, but processes were changing daily, and it was figuring out what those processes were. And so that was the biggest thing, is kind of letting go some of the control of the job site. Not to say that I'm not always watching. And so certain ways that we, on the back end today, that I still know what's going on every single day on the job site, because I'm not on every job site every day, is daily logs. My guys are taking photos of the job site every single day. And that's if lumber is getting dropped, that's tile, that's material. We're taking photos of the delivery of it. We're taking photos of what got done that day. Anything that might look a little off to the guys that they're not sure about, that they want me to look at, goes in the daily log photos. Within that, it's what happened yesterday on the job site, what's happening today, what's happening tomorrow.
Project management 101.
Yeah, exactly. Weekly meetings, we meet Mondays, walk through, hey, how'd your week go last week? Procurement related stuff. I still do a ton of project management from a procurement related stuff. So I like to be really involved with the nuts and bolts of how and what is going into the home. Those guys are just managing and executing on the way that we say, like the waterproofing assemblies, the HVAC design. I'm still very texting the HVAC guy this morning going, hey, let's zone the system this way. humidifier, dehumidifier, whatever that is that we need. I'm super involved in the front end of that stuff, which is in custom home building, which is a lot different than production home building. I'm choosing what goes into the home. Those guys are clicking buttons and it's showing up. And there's really, that's a Fortune 500 decision on what materials are used to achieve a certain price point. With us, it's how do we get the building to last the longest and behave the way we want it to over the life of it. So a lot of that is material based, what we're using. I'm very involved in that. Homeowner communication. I let the guys weekly talk to the homeowners, whether that's a phone call or a weekly update email that's sent through the programs we use to manage the photos that we take weekly, drone shots, whatever it is. It's weekly updates, and it's, hey, I still need these things. Here's what we achieved this week. Here's what we plan to achieve next week. Here's the things that we need from you in order for the project to continue moving. So those are things that they manage that I don't weekly talk to a homeowner. Not to mention that I'm on every group text with the homeowners.
Right.
If there's issues, even slightly, I'm the one that comforts everyone. Everyone still wants to talk to me, but really the reality is when you come build a home with us, I'm not there every day. The guys that are, there's 2 other guys in our office that are managing projects, beyond capable, more than anyone in the market probably. But you have to trust them to do it. And a lot of times it's stepping in and just reassuring everyone that it's going the way that it needs to be going. So
was that a hard transition for you, like really going from project management to managing the project managers? Letting go a little bit?
Yeah, I think it always is, right?
Or was it more like, I can't wait, just please?
No, it's definitely not that. I still feel like I need to manage certain parts of the project, but it's really like, I enjoyed a certain aspect of that. I don't enjoy texting a guy 12 times, reminding him he needs to show up. Those are our smaller subcontractors that hey, remember you said you're going to be here this Thursday. I hated that. Like being your mom, you're a grown up, you need to be able to manage your own schedule. But a lot of those guys are skilled craftsmen. They're not good at running a business.
Right.
And so that was the rude awakening, going from working in that production atmosphere and that multifamily deal to dealing with a guy that I'm like, hey, what's your bank account look like? Do you have enough money? Are you really bidding this job right? A lot of times they're like, you're too low. I know you're too low because I know you're not making money. So we look at it from a pretty broad level of trying to, it was easy to hand off the stuff that I didn't like doing, like texting them, giving away control of daily decisions that are being made. I always think that I can do it better than anyone else can. Mm-hmm. And they don't do it the same way as me. I think that's the biggest part that I had to figure out, how to communicate, figuring out, A, why did we do it this way? And B, this is how I would have done it and why it's better to do it that way. This is always the hardest part, probably. Yep. We still do that every day. Hey, we know Tyler doesn't like to do it this way, right?
You start to feel like you're always the bearer of bad news. That's it.
Yeah, that's my job, right? I'm always the bad guy.
I feel
even within the project, right?
It's terrible.
It's it's a team of guys. It's the architect. It's the interior designer. It's all of our trade partners that help with selections and everything else like that. I'm always the bad guy. Hey, remember we set this budget, right? You need to stay within these, the guardrails here, or you're not. And it's always like, well, why did we budget this amount? Well, it's because you had a certain budget we needed this hit. And so it's all expectation setting is what I do every day. And that's my job. I set expectations every day with my homeowners, with my guys, with everyone. It's just expectation setting. So that's what determines the outcome of the project, is how well did I set expectations.
How did you find the guys that you have in the field now? Is hiring a project manager in your space an easy thing to do? Is it a challenging thing to do?
It's hard. It's hard finding the right guy. And I think I don't know, equate a little bit of it to luck and a little bit of learning the hard way. Not to say I didn't have the right people in the office, but when you go back to the production home building way, they have softwares that link paying subcontractors to the schedule. So the guys that work for Lennar, Toll Brothers, David Weekley, they all use the same software. It's click a button. The guy's saying you want them to show up this day. They show up that day. And then when they're done, you click the button that they finished. Someone in the office or a computer's cutting a check and sending it to those guys, or ACH, whatever it is, and then just move on, right? Someone already predetermined what was in that lumber package. They determined what HVAC system you're using. They determined what type of gauge wiring you're using within the walls. They're determining the service size to the house. They're determining everything that's going in the house. Those guys are clicking buttons. The guys are showing up to the job site, and when they're done, they click the button that they're done, and then they manage the warranty of the house at the end. Sometimes at a big builder, it's a warranty department that handles it. With us, it's, hey, we need to make sure the correct lag bolts are being used, what gauge steel is being used, what gauge wire is being used, actually understanding what's going into the project. None of the production guys have any idea of that. So being able to train someone that way, like to get it done the way that you want to do it, instead of just sitting in the truck and clicking your iPad, is tough, right? So I think for us, first hire I had was a guy that I knew that I worked with at Toll Brothers. Felt like that was a safe hire. He ended up needing to leave to go take care of family. And so it was just more of he was used to running a project a certain way. We worked together, same age as me. We didn't see certain things eye to eye, but he was really good at his job. But it was a learning curve for everyone. Mm-hmm. I think multifamily really helped me understand. I contracted every subcontractor, so I needed to know the nuts and bolts that were going in the project. And so when I wrote that subcontractor agreement and the scope of work, I knew exactly what the specs of what the architect wanted to have in the building, what the engineer wanted, the nuts and bolts of everything. I had to know it. So I learned a ton doing that. And really, like, you learn a ton just trying to figure out what the right, like, what I should be using is. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that is like going back to like engineering background, like taught a lot of, cracking the textbook open, reading stuff online, making sure I'm educated, attending seminars on bettering ourselves, learning daily. But it's for us, it's really trying to figure out, like for us, the hard part is just trying to find a guy that can problem solve, wants to, passionate about building, wants to know what's going into it, and isn't just here to click buttons and have the guys show up. So that's tough.
So it's not a remote job.
No.
Well, and it's also like the same thing you said about the subcontractors. Most of those guys aren't needing a job.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find them.
I think for us, we and Austin, who works for us, can kind of tell you the interview process that he got after I'd learned my lesson with another employee that I hired that didn't work out. Austin got to, our interview process was, hey, here's a framed house. Show up at 8. Do your punch list. Show me what you got. We had done an internal punch list.
Hands-on.
Yeah, we had done an internal punch list of what we thought we needed to do. Austin went out there, spent 4 hours, came back with like a 7-page punch list. I was a little concerned at that point. Like, what did we miss, right? But like, the guy knew what he was doing. Mm-hmm. The way that his verbiage was on that punch list, knew what the materials that were being specified. There's a lot of times guys come out to the job site and call OSB plywood or like different things that aren't what they actually are, and they really do make a difference within the building of the makeup of your home. And so like making sure you know what the actual materials were. Austin knew that, was specifying nailing patterns, was doing all these small detail things you need to know, is because he was passionate about it. He didn't learn that at his old job. He probably did from the inspector maybe, but it was a little bit of cracking the code book up and really, hey, what am I looking at? Not just, did the framer show up? He did. I'm going to schedule my inspection with the city. That's not the way Austin's running.
We'll let them catch it.
Yeah, and if they don't catch it, cool.
Right.
I'm going to get my bonus faster. You know what I mean? And so for us, it was just, that was step 1. Step 2 was personality-based testing. So I had Austin take a personality test that needed to match up with what, and there was a software related to this, but it was really like, hey, we found that a project manager and superintendent has this personality. And Austin took the test and was like 100% like, this is who should be, like, he's a hot project manager. That's who he is.
It aligned.
And man, I can't tell you, like, he's been amazing for us, but like those things that we used, but I didn't use previously, that would have caught those things. Mm-hmm. And I had some of the old guys take those tests too. Just like, hey guy, how's it going? Can you take these personality tests for us? Well, it turns out they were probably passionate about different things or whatever it might be, but they weren't there to take the beating and grind of being a superintendent. And for us, it's a hybrid project manager, superintendent.
Okay.
They're procuring some materials. And really, like, I'd like for them to procure more and more as we get comfortable with it, but they're really scheduling the subs every day. And now it's, they're doing POs for me, putting together subcontracts. I'd like them to grow into kind of holistic ownership of the project. They own the financials. They own, the physical work that's happening on the job site. And so we're growing into that. We're not there yet. We will be there, but we're not there yet. So I help a ton on that. But really hiring the right guy was making sure that, again, the right processes were in place. I did LinkedIn. That's where we advertised for job postings. I had probably 300-400 within a week, probably. Wow. And, the questions I was getting, like, hey, do you do 4-day work weeks? How much vacation do you get off? Can I work from home? And it's like, that was a good majority of it. And I start to sound like an older
get off my
person.
lawn.
Yeah, exactly. Like, no, like that's not how, I'm a millennial, but it started to feel like I was, I just get these questions. I'm like, man, I don't know who taught them or told them that that's what construction is, but it's not. Our guys are working 6 days a week. It's, not to say that they have unlimited vacation. They can go when they need to, as long as their work's done. But it's like, hey, wife and I are hopping in the truck, gonna go get breakfast, but I'll go check on the guys real quick on Saturday, because our trades work 6 days a week. They're open Saturdays, so you need to be there on a Saturday. And so, like, getting through that with a lot of different people was, we had some really good kids that I thought did it, but at the same time, I didn't think their priority was like, they didn't love construction. I could tell, at least. And so that was the big thing, like finding someone passionate, finding someone willing to learn, take criticism, and grow with us. But it was really like, who could I tell at the beginning? And I interviewed a ton of kids that were willing to learn it the way we wanted to do it. And so luckily we're in a good place now. But
how did you develop the love for building? Because it sounds like when I talk to you, you can feel it, you can hear it. I think, what's that from?
I think it's we're lucky in the fact that, and it was back to engineering in the way that it was us good at math, and then like.
Did you like line up all of your Legos in order and like stack them into like?
I'm it's funny. Like pyramids. My wife keeps me together. I'm not like that. I'm not like OCD. Sure. Like if you saw like my office, I'm like stacks of paper everywhere. Organized chaos is how I run.
Yep. I like it.
Within reason. Like I need to be better. That's something I should work on every day. But we're organized chaos. But I know where everything is. My wife helps me find my keys every morning type guy. My love for building came from like just one. It was like putting together the plans, like. With structural engineering, it was always like architect. The football analogy is like the architect was quarterback. I was the offensive line, protecting the quarterback, making sure everything is going to stand. And then it was kind of like who's actually putting the pieces together and seeing the whole thing come together. And so there's not a lot of people that get to come to work every day and put something together and see it through and see the finished product. We're like probably some of the only people that get to do that every day. And so like, that's amazing. We love talking to people, love talking to new people on the phone, love the selling aspect of it. But really like being able to put this incredibly hard, never custom plan that's never been built with these insane interior design details. And then figuring out, hey, how are we going to control the humidity to make sure these finishes last longer? How are we going to do all these fun things? It's a big puzzle, put it together. And so that's what I enjoy about it.
Makes it more fun. Ones are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we are. Yeah.
I have one. I'd like to go back to it. Maybe they'll fix it on the editing, but just make it real quick. I was going to ask on that, and not to double up, but you've switched from fixed to cost plus.
Yeah.
I would say before COVID, 2019, 2018, that's just two different ways of kind of getting to the same number at a 5% mark, right?
Yeah. It was, were you making more money on a fixed price or, the cost plus percentage ones are usually less profit for
but
us.
even back then you could still get to the same. You could get to the number. It's like you could do the cost plus, but you're almost going to get to that same fixed number because you can budget for everything. During COVID, that just went crazy, and the industry has kind of changed a little bit. Do you see it going back to where that might be the case?
We're pushing back towards fixed price as fast as we can for multiple reasons. One, we don't want the client involved in the budget.
Right.
We really don't. They're not good at it. None of them are. I don't care if they think they are. They're not good at it. We don't want the homeowner asking about 10-cent charges on the receipts. Like, hey, why did we spend $15 on markers at Home Depot? Well, if we spent $15 on markers to mark your job site up to make sure the trades were doing the job, well, that's a project cost. So we were getting asked, we still get asked about those things today. And that's part of like, if you're going to start questioning us on that, well, why did you hire us in the beginning?
Right.
Because you should trust us to be a reputable, good people. One, two, just a reputable, business in the market to do the way that we said we were going to do it. So it's a little bit of, we'd like to get back to fixed price to keep people out of, even on cost plus, it's like talking through, hey, can we save money on using a different, carrier HVAC instead of a train or whatever the different levels of HVAC are.
I found this siding that looks similar to that siding, but it's $1 cheaper.
Hey, my neighbor found this guy off Facebook Marketplace that does landscaping. Can he take a bid?
It's like,
do you feel it getting closer though?
Oh, we are. Right now we are. Yeah. Okay. But it was, that led to a ton of different problems, just using the wrong guys or it's early on in business, it's hard to say no. It really is. So And almost every time we knew we shouldn't have said yes, we should have said no.
Your intuition was right.
100%. Yeah, we try to trust our gut every day at Brabec Custom Homes because I hired the right people to do the right things. Yeah. And today it's a lot of like, we're not going to do certain things. And if you want to do it, great, sign a waiver, or we're just not going to do them.
Do you build speculative homes, or is everything with a client?
We're trying to, from a business perspective, we could build a home without a client involved in probably 6 to 7 months at, let's say, up to a $2 million house. The client's involved is 12. It's just kind of 11 to 12 months. And it could be 13 to 14, It could be 18, depending upon the interior details or landscape details or whatever the more expensive it is, usually the longer it takes. For us, it's, can I build 2 homes instead of 1 and make the same profit margin that I would have? Yeah, we're pushing towards more, we'll call them spec homes, but it's, it's taking the risk associated with it. So, that's all stuff I have to personally guarantee. So if the spec home doesn't sell, I'm paying for it.
How long it took?
So it's like, we've done a couple personal homes that turned into spec homes. And so that's a pretty easy one. We'll move into it and it's fine. Right.
And there's only one of those at a time.
Right. Exactly. But now it's like, hey, a $2 million spec, what's the interest rate? Is it 11% on a spec home? Is it 8 to 11? So depending on who you're dealing with, there's a ton of variables to go into play on that and how fast we can do it, increase our profit margin. And at a certain point, you don't want to push it too fast because you still want to maintain a level of quality on the back end. We're doing one now, or we're going to start one soon. It'll be easier. I think the hardest problem we still have today is drawing a line of when the home's actually done, and moving people in too early. So like on the speculative home, like it's not, like when it's done, right? And we've walked through everything. We know everything's done versus custom home. If the inside's pretty dang close, they need to move out of the rental.
You want to come in?
Well, good luck, right? I'm not going to tell them no. I can't, right? So they'll move in probably 2 or 3 weeks too early. And then that 2 or 3 weeks that we would have had on the front end turns into 3 to 6 months of trying to get guys in on their schedule with their stuff in the house. Because now
you have to meet someone there, and they have a dog that has to be put
and a lot of the times it's like, we can't sit there and micromanage the subcontractor every day in your house. Like, you need to be there and show them, if you in my opinion, you need to be there to show them like, hey, if you don't like something, you need to show them what you want them to fix. And we'll meet them there depending on what it is.
Right.
And we're always there. It's just a matter of like, it has to be on their time. And so it's never easy. Residential subs after that are just not sophisticated enough to show up at 2 p.m. on Tuesday. They're not going to do it. Right. They're going to show up at 6. They might show up at 8 a.m. Who knows? They may show up on Wednesday at 2. Yep. So getting a residential subcontractor to do stuff after someone moves in is really hard. So I think that's the hardest. The biggest thing we're trying to do now is go, hey, when you think the house is done, we need 4 to 6 weeks after that. And even today, it's like, if someone needs to move in, I don't have a choice. I got to get them in. So, and it's working around that, but it's setting proper expectations of what that looks like. So that's the biggest issue we have post-COVID. It's still, and I think any custom home builder can say that, is we'd always like another day, another week,
more time,
another 3 weeks. So, and it's 12 months, but then it's like, well, why did it take 13, or why are we behind schedule or whatever? And it's selection related changes. It's changes to anything. And then communicating to a subcontractor that's not sophisticated to price it maybe, or whatever it is we're doing, and managing changes within his schedule because he needs to move on to the next job. It's a difficult task usually.
Do you find that most subs that work in new construction don't work retail with homeowners?
I think there's a mix of subcontractors that do a little bit of both. I think for us, we don't typically, like, it's kind of back to those craftsmen that are really skilled at their trade. They're typically not working with a homeowner most of the time. Like, my tile guy couldn't go. He could, and they do, but we have a mix of tile guys. So we use like the design showroom, but then we really, like, if I have something that we need to get done, we call a guy that, like, he doesn't have an office, or he's got sub crews. He speaks pretty good English.
Yeah.
Not great. A lot of it is like translating text messages and phone together. Yeah. Absolute craftsman.
The talent with the guy with the truck and the trailer.
That guy can't bid a job.
Right.
We figured out how much per day per guy that we helped him go, hey, you want to make money? Because we want, can't do it for free, right?
Right.
So charge me $250, charge me $300 a guy a day. We'll count how many days it took as long as they're doing the job. And then that's what I'll pay you to do the job. So, which is like the premise of running a business. Like,
Right.
what does the material cost? What does my manpower cost? How much do I need to make? So we kind of help. There's a lot of coaching on our end. Like, hey, this is how you need to be pricing your jobs.
Right.
What are you paying your guys? How much do you need to make a day to pay your bills? And so that's what we get into a lot with some of the smaller guys. They're not working for other people. Like, they're working for other builders maybe,
Right.
Or they're working for the tile company that tells them what they're going to get paid per square foot or whatever it is. But really, it's those, a lot of those guys just aren't capable of dealing with.
But if you find the talent, you got to make it. Make it happen.
Yeah, but they're just not capable of setting a price, setting expectations. And then if the job goes over what they thought it was going to cost by $30, well, they're going to go, hey, I need my $30 at the end.
Yeah,
right.
Can't do that with a homeowner.
Right.
Absolutely not. And they can't set expectations either. So I think that's a really hard part, I think, for a lot of those guys is setting proper expectations. That's all I do every day. So we use a mix of guys that probably, like our HVAC guys, work for your system goes out, they'll service it, they'll come and put a new unit in. They're also doing new construction. Same with, but our electrician only does new construction. Mm-hmm. It's a mix of everything. But our smaller trades, their profit margins usually working with like someone that calls them off the truck or whatever,
right?
Sees the phone number on it, calls them to come paint a room or whatever it is. I'm sure they make a lot more money dealing with those onesie twosie things. But then at the same time, we can set up proper expectations with our homeowner. Like, hey, you can't take a flashlight to the baseboards when you're this close to it. Like, that's just not how it works.
Sure.
Yeah, there's a guy down there sanding every piece. It's not going to be completely. It's going to look really good. May not be completely perfect. So we have industry standards on how to walk through what that is. If the painter goes and paints a dark black wall in the house that he should have probably budgeted 8 coats for, 6, 4, whatever it is, and he didn't set proper expectations with the homeowner, then usually it's never worth their time. And I think a lot of guys have learned that lesson pretty quickly. Right. But it's just different.
That's fair. I like to do this part where I'll go through different options, and then you just tell me what you like.
Or hate.
Yeah. So one of them is stucco versus brick. Do you feel strongly one way or the other?
No. Waterproofing is a little different. Means and methods are different, obviously. We like stucco if it's done properly. Mm-hmm. Brick is probably most contractors' preferred, probably favorite when you ask that, because there's a air gap behind the brick. Pretty forgiving if you don't know how to waterproof properly. We don't have a preference. We can do either and execute both. I'd say industry standards brick because it's pretty forgiving with waterproofing.
What's the difference between stucco and EIFS? Out here, are we doing both? Are y'all doing both?
It's probably contractor specific. I think EIFS, and I'm not super educated on what EIFS was 30 years ago versus what it is today. But EIFS today to me is we don't ever do EIFS, so I may butcher this. You're nailing styrofoam up to the wall and then coating it with cement-based product to get your stucco. For us, it's usually a 3-coat system that is, our system is zip system sheathing, taped, airtight, watertight. We're sealing the foundation to the concrete or the concrete to the framing for bug, vapor, 100 different reasons what we're doing with our initial assembly, getting it completely air and watertight. And then we're coming over the top of it with a rain screen is what we're using on top of that. Mm-hmm. And then the lath for the stucco is nailed to that, which is basically the reinforcement of the stucco. And then it's 3 coats of different materials that go on the top with a finished color coat. So that's what we typically use. Stucco cracks just like concrete.
Right.
If we knew how to make stucco or concrete not crack,
somebody would have done
islands.
So with stucco, with true stucco, there's no styrofoam?
True. Yeah, it's just I
know for a fact now that I hate EIFS. Is that what it's called?
Yeah. But most of the time people hate EIFS because it's not waterproof correctly.
Yeah. Well, if you ever have to attach something to it, which we've ran into, it's very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that would be a niche reason why you hate EIFS. Most of the time it's just not waterproof properly. Yeah. I think you went from a lot of guys that were doing a ton of stucco or a ton of brick that then were trying out a stucco system that, like in our market, why we've been successful, Brabec Custom Homes has, is because we know the science and proper way of executing certain details. A lot of those guys trust a subcontractor to do it. And a lot of times they didn't know what they're doing. So, and even our guys try to get away with stuff on us sometimes, and it's just managing that. But the stucco stuff's just a lot harder system to execute, making sure that each coat is curing the proper amount of time before the next coat goes on. It's, they're mixing sand with a color, like, there's so many different variables that go into stucco to achieve the color. No 2 houses might be the same exact color. It's So it's a more difficult system.
What about price point? Brick home versus stucco home, things being equal, right?
Yeah, so this is a tough question to answer. So like from a square foot basis, we pay 10 to 12 bucks a square foot for stucco, depending on the details on the house, whether it's like the banding around the windows and different details. With brick, it's $6.50 to $7 a square foot.
Okay.
The variable becomes in order to support the brick and get that air pocket behind, which gives a lot of builders that grace of getting water directly off of the windows or whatever the plumbing penetrations that are coming through. You're adding a 5.5-inch brick ledge all the way where your brick is.
Right.
And so in Texas, the appraiser is appraising all the way to the exterior of your facade. So your stucco is more expensive price per square foot, but you have less square footage in your house.
Because you don't have
the ledge. Because it's about a 3/4 to an inch system total.
Okay.
With brick, it's a 5.5-inch system. Well, that's 2.5-inch brick and the air pocket behind it. So it's really, you're adding 5.5 inches of air, it's really, you can add, that's your air conditioned square footage. So when you go to sell, it's extra square footage. So if it's a 4,000 square foot stucco house, it might be 4,250 square feet on a brick house. So when you talk to your homeowner, like, hey, what's cheaper, brick or stucco? Well, it's a really hard question to answer because when you go to sell your house,
I never thought about it that way.
You're going to make 250 extra square feet of $500 a square foot or whatever it might be. So stucco might actually, it's more expensive, and
it's a losing proposition because it's more expensive up front and less square footage on the back end.
Totally, it is. But then,
could be.
But then the upfront cost of a brick, I'm having 5.5 inches extra of concrete. So it's like, when you ask me to stucco or a brick costs more, well, brick is definitely cheaper, but like it's less foundation to do stucco, so it's
close.
It'd be really hard to run the numbers exactly of where it is when you look at the physically, but I know on the brick side of things, you're getting a larger house.
And normally a homeowner, they have a decision made whenever they come to you.
Yeah, it's mostly stylistically.
Okay,
like if you're trying to hit a certain style, there's certain materials you need to use.
Right. Okay. Are you okay with painted brick, or does it need to be natural? Are we out of the phase of the white and gray brick?
Hopefully we're on the back end of our painted brick phase for a lot of different reasons. I think it's a price point thing, probably. Okay. Painted brick, you're using the cheapest brick, and then you're priming and painting it. It's doing a lot of different things. It's making sure you're using the right products, making sure the brick's dry when you paint it. It's a bunch of things.
So if your guy's painting in the rain, maybe there's a question.
If it got rained on yesterday, I use the sponge analogy a ton. Like the brick is a sponge, right? So it's going to hold moisture even when it's humid outside, or the sprinkler. There's just so many things. The brick holds moisture just like all the other materials in your house do. And so like painting it when it's dry is crucial. So you start to see issues if it's not dry, or guys it might rain yesterday. I can guarantee you every production home builder and DFW is painting the house today.
Either way.
So this, for us, it's pretty easy because you can cover up some pretty bad brickwork. Now it kind of brings that bad brickwork. It's pretty easy to see the issues at that point, but it's a certain style. I mean, if you're trying to achieve a painted brick style, it's usually like if you're doing painted brick, you're trying to achieve a certain look at a discount usually.
Okay.
I think it's price point specific.
So you actually have an interesting blend of kitchen cabinets, but one question is wood grain or painted kitchen cabinets?
It's a trend. Yeah. So it's a trend. Yeah. We have a little bit of both here. I think it's price point related. It's also just trend. So I think we saw like mid to 2010 to 2020 or really early 2000s, a ton of wood grain stuff, but the wrong colors. It was either really dark oak
like
or
honey,
like yellow colored honey stuff. The 2010 to 2020 was painted cabinets, whites, your white kitchens and all that stuff. 2020, 2021, we started to bring in that riffs on white oak, that lighter tone, no yellows into the house, which we still love. And I'm a huge proponent of organic colors. And I think like 2024 today, like if you had to give it what the style is that's trendy today, it's organic related colors. It's the wood grains. It's a lot of texture. It's bringing stone inside. It's a completely different than the big white kitchens with white quartz that we saw a couple of years ago on your painted brick house. I think we're headed into more of like natural materials, and like in the house we're sitting in right now, all the tiles natural.
And what does that mean, natural?
So that's like clay based, like terracotta in a bathroom here. It's all handmade, I should say. So like everything was like glaze, like the Zellage tile in here was baked in Morocco, shipped here, probably rebranded by someone and sold to me.
Not a ceramic.
Yeah. And so we have a bunch of clay tiles, the brand of the company. We have a bunch of clay tile, which was actually like handmade, hand baked,
Right. shipped
to us here. Again, so when you're choosing a custom home builder and you're using like materials that are handmade and handcrafted, it's installing them the right way with the right underlayment under the tile to make sure that those natural tiles aren't cracking, or it's just sealing the tiles before you grout so you don't stain those natural tiles. It's a bunch of different things. So we like organic interiors. They're harder to manage. The wood grain, wood fillering, nail holes is tough when you're just doing a clear coat on top of the cabinet, or you're doing a whitewash on the wood to try to neutralize the graining, and then you're sealing it. If you use the wrong sealer, if you use an oil base, it'll turn yellow.
Yep.
You want to use a water base to keep that natural color. So it's that's kind of the, I don't have a preference. We love paint because it's easy.
Covers up
we really like
imperfections.
the natural woods, I would say.
Sure.
That's my long answer.
No, right on. Stainless steel or paneled appliances, or both?
Probably the same answer as last time. We love a stainless steel fridge exterior. It's easier for us. Don't have to get the gapping is perfect on the panel ready stuff. Panel ready appliances and panels in general, it's back to that sponge analogy. You got these big pieces of wood that move around a little bit. So getting the gapping on an inset cabinet, which means that the cabinet door is flush with the cabinet frame. And when your house is settling, that first couple of years, the foundation's moving. So your cabinets are moving a little bit. Your humidity right now, when it's 85% humid outside, it's getting bigger. So we hate cabinet panels. We do them because they look so good. They're really hard to get right. We get them right eventually. The stainless steel ones are super easy. We're just not doing a ton of stainless stuff right now.
Sure. Natural beams or faux beams?
We like faux beams for the same analogy of the sponge, but really there's too many good guys at making faux beams to have to structurally support a couple 100-pound member that needs to get placed before sheetrock, and sheetrocking up against one expensive solid member, but two, a natural piece of wood that it's really hard to get right around them. The faux beams they're usually cheaper, they're easier to get right, and the longevity of the home is, it's not this big piece of wood that's moving around up in the ceiling versus a really thin membrane, a really thin piece of wood that's mitered on the corners. You couldn't tell it's mitered, that gets nailed up to the ceiling, and a lot easier to manage.
Yeah, and if you truly can't tell the difference, it's a no-brainer.
No, you can't. Yeah. If you say you can, you're lying.
Yeah.
Are you installing carpet in any homes?
We definitely are. We try to avoid it. Most of the time it's a price point thing, or it's a media room usually. Sound related
dampening
stuff. Yeah, or just the feet, feeling carpet on your feet. It's either preference. Usually it's preference or price point. I'd say most of the time right now it's 100% wood and tile.
What about wallpaper? Are you doing much wallpaper?
We're doing wallpaper.
Okay.
My
Still
interior
trending?
designer would do the whole house in wallpaper if she could.
That's what I'm hearing. It's making a comeback.
Yeah. So wall coverings are back for sure.
Right.
It's just managing, getting a smooth wall, using the right primer on the wall, using the right, adhesive to put the wallpaper up on the wall, setting expectations with your homeowner about different types of wallpaper and how they get butted up together or maybe overlapped.
Yep.
Learned that lesson the hard way, but it's making a comeback.
What about textured walls? Are we doing level 5 and we're doing this, or are you still seeing some texture?
That's market probably specific within DFW.
Sure.
So it's so big, like getting to North Dallas is like an hour and a half, which might as well be a different state from us. So
Sure.
they're regionally specific. I think for us here, like if you're at a certain price point, you're not spraying a texture on the wall, you're troweling on a light texture. So it's like a level 4 drywall finish and then applying a hand trowel texture, whether it's a thick one or a really light one. This texture here is just a very light hand trowel texture. People mistakenly call it a museum finish. It's not. Like that would be a true level 5 smooth wall finish. But like in Aledo, West Fort Worth, not a ton of level 5 goes on. Downtown Dallas, you're probably going to see level 5. It's just market specific.
Are you using like LVL for your members?
At a
or
certain
do
price
you have
point,
to
we
get
could
to that
spend as
point?
much money as we
Sure,
want,
sure.
right? I would love to use LVL studs or just metal studs in general.
Okay.
And that's why I think in residential, back to like controlling humidity in your home and everything else like that, having wood studs that are either finger jointed from the factory, trying to get those straight, or a solid member of wood, trying to get that straight in the wall is impossible.
Mm-hmm.
We do our best. But then trying to get the wall perfectly smooth on top of a piece of wood that's moving around in the wall is impossible. And the longevity of a level 5 on wood framing, in my opinion, is just not good. Doesn't age well. Yeah. So we do a lot of level 4 with the hand trowel out here. Not to say we don't spray texture in the garage to save money or something like that.
Sure. What about smart devices in the home? Is the Internet of Things and appliances, is that still happening? People still ask for that?
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I think we're kind of hit a point where like we're trying to trend back away from smart technology to a certain extent, but like switches are one that we have a really hard time doing, like smart switches within reason. And that could get down a different rabbit hole, but like smart switches that have screens on them, and like instead of having a physical switch to turn it on, maybe you're using a slider or something like that. Did a lot of that, trying to get super far away from that again. It's just tough to using it daily. It's just nice having a switch. Not to say you can't control the switch from your phone, but like a smart switch that you can physically switch, but a lot of it was panels or a smart panel in each room or whatever it was. It's just hard to ask, the appliances to turn the lights on. They never really work right. Not to say I don't love seeing when the dishwasher's done on my phone or the ovens hit a certain temperature. Those are all great things. Or the laundry, the dryer's done, and that kind of stuff. That's great. There's so many different smart things, lighting control that's out there that's really good, but then it takes a lot of maintenance on. A lot of guys can program the lighting control or your control force system in your house. It's just maintenance, right?
Sure.
So, and that costs money.
Got it. Got a section called spend or splurge. Okay. So give you a category, and then you just say, is this somewhere where you would save money or somewhere that I would overspend money?
Okay.
So let's start with roofing. Should someone try to save money or splurge on roofing?
We're splurging every time, given where we are locally. We could see a tornado. We could see 30-degree temps. We could see 0-degree temps. We could see hail the next day, possibly a tornado, 80-mile-per-hour winds. There's really no reason to have a composite shingle on the roof, in our opinion. It should be a tile. Slate's got its own issues. Da Vinci makes a great faux slate, I'll say. Metal's a great material. We use TPO on the flat roofs. Those are all great materials that can withstand a certain level impact of hail. But like throwing a composite shingle roof on a house, especially at a certain price point, it's just trying to emulate a slate from France or something like that. One, you're not achieving the look, but two, you're putting a product that's going to get replaced within the next couple of years, especially where we're at.
Windows and doors.
You got to splurge. Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes back to designing your home from the beginning. You don't want to use a vinyl window that's helping it's heating up and tossing heat in your house. It's, the glazing's not great. There's so many different factors that go into the glass with how energy efficient they are. Getting a good window in the house is important, but then like the longevity of that window, vinyl windows, you're probably replacing those in 10 years. A good aluminum clad wood window, they have lifetime warranties most of the time on those too. So you might spend another maybe 3 times the cost of a vinyl, or 4 times or 10 times, depending on the window design. They're going to last better. They're more energy efficient. Could I tell you when they're going to pay themselves back? No, I don't. But are they going to leak? Usually not.
Right.
That's Marvin, that's Pella, that's Anderson, that's a bunch of guys that are doing that. There's no reason on a certain price point to try to save there at all.
What about wood flooring?
Wood flooring's a painful subject for us. We don't do nailed down wood flooring anymore. We'll do it. We try to caution you on it. It's just not forgiving. Again, back to the appliances not being reliable. If the dishwasher goes, well, I got to rip all the wood floors out, resand, refinish.
Right.
It's a pain in the butt. A lot of times we're sitting cabinets on top of real wood floors. So if there's a leak, you're ripping all that stuff out. Leaks happen. They do. Sometimes the trim carpenter might shoot a nail through. It rusts out a year later. We didn't know it. Happens. Engineered floor, you rip right back up, put new stuff down. You're good to go. Real wood floors, you got a pretty big problem.
Trying to get them to match.
Well, it's just
impossible.
You're just trying to manage, and we really push, a couple years ago, again, COVID comes around. Where's an easy spot to save money? Well, we're getting these houses so airtight and we're trying to get fresh air inside. Really, humidity skyrockets at a certain point, especially right now. It's 80% humidity outside. Your house is super humid. Well, your floor is starting to warp at a certain point, and then we get into late summer and it's no humidity outside, and they all dry out, so they're all shrinking again. And so on our homes now going forward, like it's non-negotiable. You have a dehumidifier in the house just to help keep it somewhere 45 to 50% relative humidity inside.
And that's during construction or something that you recommend even
so
after?
If the budget allows it, it's during construction.
Okay.
So that we're installing the finishes at the humidity that they're acclimating during construction in the humidity that they'll live in for the rest of their life. That's price point specific. It gets super expensive to do temporary HVAC. Although we'd love to do it on every project, we probably wouldn't be in business if I pushed that on my clients. Right. We wouldn't be able to afford any finishes. It's getting, we like to use April air dehumidifiers. That's constantly running. Usually we'll time to a thermostat where you could have the homeowner mess with it. We try not to tie it to the thermostat. So it's running on its own. It runs once an hour. It's pulling water out of the air, draining down through our plumbing. It's just helped maintaining a constant relative humidity throughout the house, which allows that sponge not to shrink and expand. It's just staying the same.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a splurge item for someone to think about.
It's a non-negotiable splurge at Brabec Custom Homes because we're getting into super airtight houses. We have to control the humidity or the finishes aren't going to last. So a lot of that is real wood floors they're just really hard to control, acclimating them properly. It's a marketplace thing. They get installed when there's no HVAC in the home, and then we turn it on and try to let it acclimate for a couple weeks, and then we sand it, stain it, seal it. You're not supposed to put rug downs on an oil-based one for 30 days. So try telling a homeowner you just finished their home, but you can't put rugs down for 30 days.
And they have a welcoming party, welcome home party scheduled.
Yep, been yelled at for it. Learned my lesson.
Been trying to do it properly in March, April here.
Yep. No, and that was our fault, not setting proper expectations on that. Sure. So, but like real wood floors, you just don't typically do them a lot in now. But there's 100 reasons why the engineered wood floors that are on the market now are so good. Plank widths are huge. You can't really do big plank widths on real wood floors, which eliminates the need to have real wood floors because we're doing 7-9 inch wood floor widths.
That's so good too.
Yeah, so that's the style right now. So we're not doing a ton of real wood floors. Not to say that people don't want them, but usually when we do them, it might be. We actually had a house a year ago. We closed. HVAC went out. Blower went out in the attic. I had no control over that. Humidity skyrocketed inside. Floor started to warp. How am I supposed to? That was still lose for us. Luckily, it was only in certain spots. Got it fixed. It was fine. But engineered wood floor was on the ground. We wouldn't have had a problem. And it's kind of just managing our risk on, hey, we're not going to do nail down wood floor because if power goes out when it's, either super hot and we have rolling blackouts or it's freezing, I can't maintain the constant humidity inside the house and we have problems.
Right. Other splurge or spend category would be landscaping.
Landscaping can make or break the way the house looks. I'm splurging every time. You can make a really ugly house look good with good landscaping.
And what about tile? Can you just go down to floor and decor and make it work?
No, we're not going to floor and decor usually for 100 reasons. Not to say that people haven't, and we haven't installed floor and decor before, because we absolutely have. That's an interesting question. In certain areas, it's worth the splurge. In your kid's bedroom upstairs, it's absolutely not worth the splurge. Spend the money in the master. Spend the money in the kitchen. Don't spend it in your kid's bedroom, especially the pink tile that you want for your 8-year-old daughter that's not going to want the pink tile next week. So it's splurge in the right places.
Sure. What about generational homes? Are you seeing a transition to where people are building homes with a parent, grandparent, any of that in mind, or are you typically still just seeing single family?
I'd say early in my career, back to Toll Brothers, I think it has to do with different cultural backgrounds, whether your parents are living with you, your grandparents, your kids are all living in the same home. We did a lot of that. We even started offering like 2 master suites. It depends. I think market Alito, we don't really have a ton of that.
Sure.
But we do have the need for, hey, can we do we're on 2 acres, so can we do a pool house that might be my mother-in-law's
There,
suite
yep,
for now.
there you go.
So we get asked to do that a lot, or like, hey, our kid may not be going to college. We might need a spot outside for him. So that's happened to us too.
Sure.
I think it's something we get asked about, but I don't think it's a huge trend.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did mean to ask a question earlier, but this is the only one is how does Brabec or you go about picking or choosing your architect, especially with your background?
It's a good question. It's really, we partner with a couple really good architects, and not to say we wouldn't ever work with new ones. We totally would. For us, the higher the price point gets, the more detailed the plans need to get. And so in Texas, you'll see a few different things. So like in California, you have to be a licensed architect. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Texas, you can be a designer. So you don't have to be a licensed architect to draw a set of plans and send it to the city of Fort Worth and get a permit. You don't have to be licensed. Like out in the county, I don't have to use a licensed architect. But then like if I'm taking on a $5 million project, well, I want the architect to specify waterproofing,
everything,
means and like the specs of what's going in the home and all of those things. And that's just to, mitigate risk on our end. So it's really, I think that the big thing is stylistically, what's a good fit for our clients. And so like some guys are really good at certain styles, some guys are not. So it's placing that. Some's personality based. Some's, hey, how fast can I turn around a set of drawings? So it's usually, we try to stick with the same guys, have great relationships with a couple guys. But then, sometimes it's a different set of plans. It might be a stock set of plans for another architect.
One for one style, one for the other.
Yeah,
that kind
totally.
Of thing.
So there's they're good at different things. I think for us, it's we try to get as much level of detail on the front end as possible. The more we can iron out in the planning stage, the smoother the build goes. Yeah. The more on budget we're hitting the budget.
I joke with him, we'll get the plans sent over for the houses. I can tell the builder by the plans.
Yeah. So like, don't get me wrong. We'll do some 6-page sheets of sets, and then we'll also work on some, for us, we have a phenomenal interior designer that we work with not exclusively, but pretty much exclusively Nuance Interiors. I mean, we might get 100 and something page set of details from the interior designer on how to execute the exact light bulb height, the bulb, the grout, the edge of the tile detail, like down to everything, but it's all dimension, it's color. The client can see what they're signing off on. It's really easy for our subs to execute on it. Yeah.
Right,
so if I can push to get an interior designer, then the project goes smoother, it goes faster, it's on budget, and probably going to cost more. Right. They don't pick cheap stuff, never in their life.
Right.
Even if
where's the fun in that?
Yeah, no, they don't. So, but then they do these beautiful things, and then client falls in love with them, and then we end up spending the money almost always.
Yep. You can find it, right?
But like we tell it right now, like if it was up to me, we try to push it as much as we can, but you have to use an interior designer on our project because you can visualize what's going in. You're not going to have to almost every time by the end of the project, if you didn't have an interior designer involved, it's not a great process for you because building a custom home is labor intensive. I mean, we can source appliances from Italy. I can get hand painted tiles from Portugal. You can, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want with us within reason because we need to push the project forward. So you better have picked it out beforehand. Hopefully, most of the time it drags on if you don't have an interior designer. It drags on into needing lights.
You need somebody.
Cabinets already in the house.
Yeah, you need somebody pushing.
Yeah, so then the vanity design depends on, and the mirror size changes if we're doing sconces or if we're doing a pendant hanging from the light, or are we doing a vanity light above the mirror? Well, that depends on where I put the wire in the wall. How much sheetrock repair are we doing? Trying to find that wire because we changed the pendant design or whatever else. Versus when I have an interior designer, we already know what that is. We know what it's going to cost. The electrician knows exactly where to put the wire. Things go way faster. Repairs are way less on the back end. Try painting over like an eggshell finished wall. You got to repaint the whole wall.
Right.
With flat paint, when you use a production builder, it's easy to touch that little spot up and you're moving on. When I make one drywall hole in a 20-foot wall, I got to repaint the whole thing. You can't just touch a small little section of it up.
And not to mention, it goes down as a simple the fact that you'd be amazed at how many people cannot visualize what a 4x8 sheet of or 3x6 right here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
it just takes forever, and that's not their job. And they all have jobs too. So hey, the tile shop's open most of the time from 8 to 5 on Monday through Friday, right? So you need to make time out of your schedule to go make those selections. Countertops, you need to make time out of your own schedule to make those selections. So it's a constant battle of hey, let's pay people that one can make your house unique, that's never been done before, and two, lay it all out for you. You can see whether you like it right now or not. because you know real quick if you like it. And it is crazy the technology that's out there to be able to visualize what your house looks like now. And when it's done, it'll look nearly identical. And so you know if you're going to like it or not. And it allows us to, one, be able to bid it out maybe with a couple different people because we know exactly what's going in the home, versus if you're going to go sit with the cabinet guy and work through cabinet shop drawings in the cabinet shop, well, that impacts a ton of different things for us. Right. And it really impacts cost for them. It's really hard for me to budget what your cabinet budget should be if we don't know what the actual cabinet looks like and the function of that cabinet is, whether it's a door or a drawer. That changes the price for us. So really, the interior designer might cost, let's just say it's a 4,000 square foot house that might cost 30 to 40 grand on the front end. Well, we're coming in, our projects are coming 3 or 4 months faster. They're on budget.
Right.
And you're getting something unique that you already knew you were going to like when it was done.
Right.
Projects go way better for us at that point.
Have you seen those places where you can go and walk your plans? Like they hologram it out?
I just saw this the other day.
Yeah. We have. I'm not a huge, and I don't mean to hate on those guys.
Sure.
You can't visualize your home on the floor. Just like when I form up the foundation on the ground, everyone shows up to the house going, that's not the right size house. It's too small. That's not what our house looked like.
Sure.
First house I ever built, spec home, was a 4,000 square feet, is 125 feet wide. I had HOA complaints because they thought the foundation was too small. It's just neighbors being nosy that thought we weren't meeting the minimum square footage in the neighborhood, which we're far exceeding. But it's like, you can't visualize and you can't feel a projected floor plan on the ground, what that actually feels like. The best way for us is, let's go walk some houses.
Right.
I can show you what a 14 by 14 guest bedroom feels like. I can show you what a 16 by 22 foot master feels like. Let's go walk it. Let's go walk an 11 foot ceiling versus a 10 foot ceiling.
Right.
The volume of the room makes a massive impact on how it feels. And so those things for me, it's really, they're cool.
The hologram on the floor is
VR walking through is a thing. Walking your, putting the VR goggles on, walking your house, you get motion sick and it doesn't really feel how it does in person. There's no way of replacing, let's go walk at one of our houses under construction and get a feel for what it is. And it's got to be sheetrocked when you walk it.
Do you find it as a high-end quantity builder, throwing out 700 houses a year, that builder could maybe use that.
Maybe, but those guys also have every model,
somewhere.
You got the 3,500 square foot models in Frisco, in the 3,800 square feet.
I assumed I saw it just as a pure sales tactic.
Yeah.
I thought that's you can come see it first.
Right.
Buy from us. That's what I.
So is it? Can any builder use it? Is it?
There's a ton of companies that offer hey, send us your plans. We'll project it down on the ground, and you can walk it.
So it's an additional service.
Yeah,
it's not like a builder specific thing. Okay.
No. Okay. But it's architect specific. If you wanted to walk a VR model or a 3D model of your home, it just depends on the softwares they're using to draft your house and everything else like that. But really, like the hologram or projecting, walking your floor plan before you finalize it, there's no way to get a good feel for what that's going to feel like. Right. The window, the quantity of square footage of glass in your house,
what you're looking at outside,
the direction your house is
fixed.
Because once the walls go up, everything changes.
It's impossible. So to me, it's just a waste of money.
Gimmicky.
Yeah. Not gimmicky because it might help someone, but it's not for us. Yeah.
Awesome. When we were talking earlier, you said there were a list of things you wouldn't do. That if a homeowner was like, hey, I want this, you would say, we might not be a good fit.
Yeah.
Do you have that short list?
It's a long list.
So I was about to say, I bet it's long. Yeah.
It's a long list, but I'll paraphrase. For us, it's really you're hiring Brabec Custom Homes because you trust us to deliver a product that we can stand behind, right? So that's number one. And doing certain things would, affect the ability for us to deliver a good product to you. Mm-hmm. Using your neighbor's friend, they're your buddy, to come to hang your sheetrock isn't one of those things that we'll do. Using your buddy's plumber to come to your house isn't something we'll do. If you want to bring your own subcontractors, if it's a painter that did faux painting for you in your last house, it's phenomenal. That's great. You reap the benefits or whatever bad happens from it. That's your problem. There's certain things that we don't work. Usually it's not bringing a subcontractor to the table.
Okay.
Someone that wants to do some of it themselves, absolutely not going to happen with us. I can't make money waiting on you to come do tile work. And I've been asked so many random things that just aren't a good fit for us.
Sure.
It's 100. There's so many different things. So the real wood floors is a big no-go for us for 100 different reasons that we kind of touched on, but there's 1,000 more reasons why we don't like them.
Sure.
The not having a dehumidifier in the house is a non-negotiable. for us using certain, like trying to tell me what materials we're going to use for the structure of the home. That's water, that's air, that's 100 other things that we're trying to attack for different reasons. We're not doing it unless you're a licensed architect and you're building a home with us. We'll listen within reason, but most of the time they're not doing residential architecture. There's not a ton of people doing wood framed stuff that depends on certain products to be executed a certain way. So we take seriously, like the reason you hire Brabec Custom Homes is because we understand the science behind your home, the engineering behind your home, and really putting the whole system together, and try to make that thing last forever. But it's like there's a lot of different things that we don't like. It's product based, it's brand based, and I don't want to shout out what brands we won't use. Plumbing is a big one. We don't use certain brands. Certain shower valves tend to freeze when it gets below 32 degrees. They're going to slow leak behind the wall. You need to rip them all out and replace them. Certain brands are good at quality control. Certain brands aren't. A lot of that is different brand related stuff. We will not do at Brabec Custom Homes because we've had to fix or replace or whatever else. Toilets is one. We're not going to Home Depot and buying toilets anymore. They might be half the price of buying at the supply house, but it's cheaper materials than your toilet.
There's a reason.
So we've been asked everything. It's really like we need to use good appliances and good subcontractors that will stand behind the work, not telling us what to do. And I think it just goes back to trusting the person you're hiring to build.
I think it's a great
the most expensive investment in your life. For some people, it's not. Most people, it is. Yeah. So it's interviewing them. It's making sure they're doing what they're saying they're going to do. It's really like you got to trust us. Yeah. Once you lose trust on the project, it's over. So
and they're hiring, or they should be hiring you to build and protect them. Yeah. Even if that means you have to protect them from themselves. And
totally.
Some terrible decisions.
Some people like that just don't like being told what to do, but or how to do it. But we're at a point in our growth where we're just not going to do certain things. Whereas 2-3 years ago, I would have said, sure. Knew I shouldn't have, but I did. Yeah.